I think we got something from Al. Let's go to Al here for a minute.
Coach Al.
Says that you guys have lost your defensive identity. Do you agree with that? What's your response to that?
Yeah. You know, definitely we let their runs affect us early on, I feel like. And, you know, we had some just bad turnovers early on that really hurt us. As far as the defense goes, for whatever reason, we have lost it. Not doing as good a job as we can. So, you know, the challenge is this year that we've been able to bounce back and figure it out. And, you know, our backs are against the wall now, so that's something that we have to do.
Al, you guys have come through in those moments, and this game felt like a must-win. What was different about tonight?
Yeah. You know, I obviously.
Anyway, that drives me crazy, and I'm going to try to calm myself down right now. But who was on this show all year saying this defense isn't right? And who asked Joe throughout the year over and over and over again, what's up with this defense? And just got barked back at repeatedly about how they were number 2, they were number 1 for this stretch of games, the rankings and this and that. They never looked right on defense this year. They never had a defensive mentality. Every time you asked about defense, Joe would turn it back to offense. And it was obvious that slipped this year. I didn't care what their ranking was. They had so many games that they just melted down on that end. And they let isolations kill them all year. In spots, they had a great defensive rebounding in the aggregate, but in spots, they gave up offensive rebounds that killed them. And when the playoffs came around, they started fouling a lot. And there just wasn't that crispness with the switching. Not to mention the passivity of dropping as much as they did this year. The defense, it's amazing it finished too. As many holes as it seemed to have throughout this year. And it took this many games to finally acknowledge that.
CLNS Media's Celtics coverage is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win.
I've defended Joe at every turn, John. It's impossible at this point.
I mean, sure. I mean, at this point, I mean, he's admitting it himself. Whatever it is, I think it's a multitude of things. But again, it's still going to let the players off the hook, though, isn't it? Like
you can't, yeah.
Like the problem I think is, and I know you've covered a ton of ground, so I'm not going to say anything you haven't said a million times already. But like, they're front runners. This is what we've said kind of all year, and this has been the fear. Is they'll blow you out when the threes are falling and everything's going good. You know, let's count the Tatum and Brown 30-point games and celebrate. You know, but like, what happens when you're, you know, when someone gets in your way, when you're facing a challenge, when you got to dig deep? They can't. So like, it's easy to turn to the coach and be like, well, get them ready. Like, I just don't think it works like that. Like, it just, you know. It would, if they listened or they had heart or they executed, they could have been a dominant offensive team and still won. They didn't. I'm not going to say they didn't need to be a great defensive team, but any form of good basketball would suffice. They're not doing it on either end. So you can point to the defense and say they don't have a defensive identity. I think that's because they had such a ridiculous one last year that you can say it's nothing close to that, and that's what made them dominant. But if they were a dominant offensive team and stuck to the game plan and kept doing what they were doing, they'd be competitive. They're not right now because they're horrible on offense. They're disconnected everywhere, Bobby. So I'm not just going to look at the defense and say the defense wasn't good all year and that's why they're losing now. They're losing now because they have no identity, zero.
Well, we know
in either direction. They don't. Yeah. So that's the problem.
And
the offense has no plan. They just aren't used to it. Every time they see something, they devolve into mismatch hunting instead of running any sort of offense. You know, it's just there's no fluidity to it at all. So again, it's on the players. I don't know. I mean, I'm curious. Sherrod hasn't moved yet, so I don't know when you guys sliced up your blame pie, who got the biggest pieces tonight?
Joe.
All Joe, huh?
Not all
for me.
Joe, but no, it's Joe's a big part of the problem.
Yeah.
And it's really
Joe's in
simple.
trouble. He
Joe's
is
a big part of the problem, but Sherrod doesn't think he's a big enough part of the problem to do anything about it.
You mean to fire him? Let's just call it what it is, Jimmy. You want him fired.
I'm not saying I want him that. I'm saying you don't think he deserves.
If he's a big part of the problem, and I think he's going to get better, and I don't think that they're going to fire a third coach in 3 years. No,
I don't see how you can bring him back. I'm not going to lie. I think if it was I think if it was a different ownership group, he would not be back.
Yes.
But because it's this ownership group, they're not going to pay a coach to not coach after signing him. But I think someone else.
So it's just about that. It's about $500,000 or whatever the hell they signed him to.
Yeah.
Right. I
think
mean,
Rod, if they didn't extend him at the All-Star break, he's fired. That's what this is about.
If he did
not,
not,
and that's an absolute joke.
If he still had the interim label, then he'd be.
He
gone.
wouldn't be back. They'd run interviews.
Then it's an absolute joke. If that's the only reason, then
I don't think that's the only
joke.
reason. I don't think that's the only reason, but I think that would be the most significant.
Then I think it's a joke. I think that's bad front office decision.
This is the thing that I always come back to when people want so and so fired. Who are you thinking about as a replacement? Because that's, to me, you don't fire someone unless you have someone an idea to replace them.
Listen,
because otherwise you could
there's
potentially
a lot of replacements out
There's
there.
a lot of coaches.
And Jimmy, the point that you made earlier about there being this robust amount of coaches available now, you're right. Now, that's the case. That was not the case when they just realized right before the season that they got to get rid of Ime.
I'm not criticizing them for that. I'm not criticizing them for that, Sherrod. I'm looking forward to the next season. I'm not looking past. Oh, they shouldn't have hired him. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, what do you do about this situation moving forward if there is a disconnect? If like a lot of a lot of people on, like, I think I saw Eddie House said after the game that he thinks the players have quit on Joe Mazzulla. I mean, if that's the case, I'm not sitting out here with the pitchfork.
I don't think they
leading
have.
the cause.
I think they quit on each other.
Fired Joe Mazzulla. All I'm saying is, too. But that's just what he said. My point is this.
I think they've quit on each
other. If this
other.
is a team built to win a championship, you need a coach that's ready to coach a championship caliber team. That's all. I'm not
what does
saying
that mean, though?
Is,
what does that mean to be ready to coach a championship? Like, what does that mean? What are the qualifications?
A coach with more experience.
To get that.
A coach
Can
that's
I tell you this? The biggest load of crap like surrounding the Celtics and Celtics fandom is this love and trust thing. I've never gotten a sense that there's trust among these guys with one another, or trust in a process, or trust in anything other than their own individual talent. I think they believe they are talented. I think they might believe other people have talent too, but there is no sense of these guys working for each other, playing for each other. I've never seen it. That's why you do it. You're doing it for one another. That's why you do, like, and again, it's so friggin' cliche, but the grimy things. That's why you hit the deck. That's why you fight for people. That's why you run over to someone when they get knocked down and pick them up. That's you're doing it for each other. I've never gotten a sense that they do that at all, ever. You know, it's a team. It's a collected. It's a team of talented individuals that just when everything is sunny, they're going great. When everything's crappy, nobody steps up, nobody picks it up. Everyone's looking at everyone else. There's a lot of we. It's 5 years now, 4 years with this core. Everyone's going to look at the coach, and I think it's both. I don't think Joe's the guy for this job. He's not. I don't know that another coach comes in and magically fixes it. I'm still always going to look at the players.
They might have to address multiple. They might have to address multiple things, John. But it's impossible to exclude Joe from the conversation because
I think it's hard to. I think
I think there were a lot. I think there were a lot of questions.
He was never ready in the first place. He wasn't.
It's not even about. It's not even about ready. It's about he had a plan.
Capable.
He implemented it. Was it the right plan? Because I don't think what happened this year was, he couldn't institute things in time, or he didn't get his message across to the players. For a lot of this year, they did everything he wanted them to.
Coaching is really hard. It's really hard. If you are so adamant that your way is the right way, you need proof. You need proof of performance. It's really hard to get a bunch of people to believe in what you're telling them to do when you're a third-tier assistant and you've never had any success doing it.
This edition of the Garden Report is also brought to you by Athletic Greens. Visit athleticgreens.com/garden for a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase.